Another scandal going on at the moment, and this is to do with the Oxford colleges, and a college that I know very, very well, St Peter's College. St Peter's College had a reputation when I was at Oxford, and I'm sure it hasn't changed, of being the poorest college in Oxford, and it was constantly taking handouts from Christ Church, the richest college in Oxford, just across the road. And there's a man who was the vice master of St Peter's College, and he said that what's going on now is shocking. But you have to look very carefully at what he's saying. Now, the background to all this is that Max Mosley, you know, the man who was involved with the orgy, where somebody may or may not have been dressed up as a Nazi, the man who was sort of involved in racing driving and actually was involved in contracts for the Concorde, interesting man, died last year, I think, and he is the son of Sir Oswald Mosley, who was the man who set up the British Union of Fascists. He was an anti-Semite, and really quite a foul person. I mean, he backtracked a lot in later life, but whether he backtracked a lot or not, he did enough damage, and it's the damage that he's done, and actually the damage that his son did in the 1960s. There's an expose a while ago by the Daily Mail, which Max Mosley tried to challenge. In the 1960s, Max Mosley wrote a fairly scurrilous piece, which was particularly racist as well. So like father, like son. It doesn't matter how much you recant. When you're saying things in public, you have to be careful what you say, because of the damage that can be caused. It reminds me a little bit of the story of the Curé d'Ars, his amazing French priest during the time of the Revolution. And people used to come from far and near to go to him for confession. And there was one woman who went and said, "Oh, I've been gossiping," and he said, I can't deal with this. Now, could you go to a nearby village and get me a chicken for lunch? And on the way back, can you pluck it? And so she did precisely this, and she arrived back at the church with a plucked chicken, and I said, "Look, I got it here." And he said, "Very good. Now, can you go back and pick up all the feathers?" And she said, "That's impossible." He said, "And so too with your gossip." And that's the problem with saying things in public. You can't be sure the effect that they're going to have, and certainly if you're behind a fascist movement, really you should be hanging your head in shame for the rest of your life. Now, LMH, Lady Margaret Hall and St Peter's have accepted £6 million from a fund which Max Mosley set up in honour of his father, Sir Oswald Mosley. And the university has accepted this money, and Lawrence Goldman, and of course, St Peter's desperately needs that money, and Lawrence Goldman, who is the former vice master of St Peter's, has said that he is shocked. He says the university has gone off the scale in wokery, and yet at the same time it's accepting this money from a known fascist. This, he says, is about hypocrisy. Now, I don't think he's saying that we shouldn't necessarily accept the money. I think he's saying that you can't do both things. You can't protest about the statue of Cecil Rhodes and at the same time accept money from the man who founded the British Union of Fascists. You can't have it both ways. It produces an unsustainable moral chaos. So should St Peter's therefore go on to rely on other colleges to survive? Or should it rely on a fund established by a known anti-Semite? Whatever qualifications came later, it doesn't matter. And Max Mosley, we know of his efforts to stand as a conservative parliamentarian. We know of his efforts to fund to provide funding for the Labour Party, and how it was twice rejected. So the Labour Party has enough honour to reject this bundle of money from a man whose name is tainted by association with fascism. Now, of course, and I think by a man whose name is most commonly recognised now today, not for motor racing, not for the Concorde, but for being involved in some sort of shady orgy. I don't know really whether I want a college where I had many tutorials, a college I know very well, to be taking money from such a wretch. It doesn't matter whether something was legally proven or not legally proven to be an offence about privacy. What matters is these events took place. What matters is his name is associated with fascism. What matters is his name is associated with racism and with anti-Semitism. And yet at the same time, people are protesting about the statue of Cecil Rhodes. You can't have it both ways. Now, of course, in my mind, I'm slightly bewitched by the wonderful 1998 television series about Mosley with Jonathan Cake. If you haven't seen it, and if you don't know anything about Oswald Mosley, that is a wonderful introduction. But one of the things that it does is it gives because Jonathan Cake is such a charismatic performer, it gives you really quite a rosy view of who Sir Oswald Mosley actually appeared to be. And let's put it, look at some of the photographs of him. He's not this attractive, wonderful actor. He's a morally depraved individual who managed to steer so many people off kilter in the run-up to the Second World War. No, I think it is shocking that Oxford is accepting this money, and Oxford needs to think again. It's not simply about hypocrisy, it's about where this money is coming from. So there we are. Please do follow my channel, and please do ring the bell. I'd be really interested to know what you think about this, particularly if you have any links with Oxford or St Peter's or Lady Margaret Hall, and if, like me, you share an abhorrence for fascism, anti-Semitism and racism.